How's it going? I'm Reed.
I'm Kay. And this is our tiny home. We refer to it as Bessie. Our build is called Operation Off the Grid. So the idea behind this is building this rig that allows us to live entirely zero impact off the grid. So we are entirely solar powered. We have our own water storage. Yeah, the idea is to kind of simplify our lives and live tiny and off the grid.
All right, so we'll show you around the inside of Bessie. One of the first things people notice in here is that there's not a bed. And in this situation, we're not completely done with the tiny home. And one of the last steps will be finishing the indoor shower that we have and the Murphy bed, which will be placed on our last open space that we have for walls, and it'll be the front of Bessie. And we came up with this creative idea looking at a bunch of YouTube videos, and one thing I would recommend for anyone that's trying to build or think of building a tiny home is to look at as many videos as you can. And you see these tiny home tours and you think of something you've never seen before. With that, we just came up with this Murphy bed idea that's going to be a Murphy bed on one side, and then the entire cabinet rotates, and there's shelves on the other side with a table that drops down. So it's a little hard to visualize, but the bed will tuck away on the back side of the shelves. You can have a table during the day, and then it'll 180-degree spin to Murphy bed. So there is not a bed in this house right now, but we are currently living in the back of a little pop-up camper having my truck.
Yep, that table is a temporary placeholder. The Murphy bed table will fold out and be kind of generally in the space. The bed will fold all the way down and take up pretty much all of this.
So as far as storage goes, one of the most important things we've found is actually have a lot of storage, because when we've gone to these tiny homes, we've seen that the commercial tiny homes, more often than not, they look beautiful. You walk in, there's this really wide, open, spacious living room, but there's nowhere to put anything. And people, they come in here and like, you have so many cabinets. Like, yeah, because we have real things that we need to put in real places. And so this back wall here is our main clothes and storage cubbies and furniture. And it's from IKEA. A lot of our storage is from IKEA because they have, if you ever walk around at IKEA, you'll know that you can find anything you've ever been looking for.
The nice thing about IKEA too is they're very modular. And so we literally went through IKEA, we knew the height, which this is a pretty short trailer. I mean, we're both, Reed's 5'8", I'm 5'4", so we don't really need a ton of height. So this trailer is on the shorter side. And finding cabinets, a closet, this is shorter than any closet you could find. And we were originally going to do a custom build, but we decided that it wasn't really worth our time when we found this at IKEA. These are actually, I think, TV cabinets, but they're extremely modular. It was just 4 base units, and you can customize all the shelves and drawers and move things around, and it fits perfectly, as you can see. And it's been pretty amazing. People always ask, how much have you had to downgrade your life in order to live a tiny home? And I didn't get rid of any of my clothes, and as a female, that tends to be a concern. Girls have a lot of clothes sometimes, and I still have all of my clothes. We're both professionals. We need to have nice clothes, can't just shove it in a drawer somewhere. So having a big closet was pretty key for us, and it's been really nice. It doesn't feel like really much of a change from living in a standard size home.
We originally planned on Bessie being a fairly permanent structure. It wasn't going to be something we were driving around the country, visiting all the national parks and just constantly moving. So we weren't too worried about cabinets with front doors and, different amenities that could handle driving and bumping down the road. But for this one, I have the left side, Kay has the right side, but as she was talking about earlier with all the girl clothes, she's officially breached this line and is now taking over my area because I don't use all my space efficiently.
He doesn't.
So she's kind of just slowly creeping over, especially as winter comes and she needs more warm clothes and more warm things. Soon I'm just going to be packed over in the garage and she'll have the full cabinet. But the couple times we have moved, when it was from Utah to here, or to tiny home festivals, or to the different properties, like the horse ranch, it takes a couple hours to get this ready to move. We got to take most of the things off the shelves, and we got the cubbies in the middle of the trailer that has 1,000 books and things on it, and It takes, you know, an afternoon to get this thing ready to move, but we're not too concerned about that because realistically, this will move at most once or twice a year.
Yeah, and it was kind of a decision that we originally talked, you know, we could have snaps and strings and things to be ready to move and make it easier, but we decided in terms of, like, because we're not moving very much, it kind of improves our quality of life to have a normal closet setup. Yeah, I mean, it's a very standard closet, sort of standard closet, in terms of not having, you know, wires that you have to pull back and all that, which would be great if you were moving all the time, but for us not moving, it makes it feel more like home. Just makes it easier access for all our clothes. And
so as we transition up to the roof here, you can see there's a skylight. It did not come originally with the interstate trailer, but we got a lot of our wood and construction materials from like Restore, Habitat for Humanity type of places where you can get really quality stuff for like $2. I think we probably had, you know, a roll of insulation at Home Depot would be like $40, and we probably got $800 of insulation for like...
Yeah, they're great. We've actually, we were working with them a lot in Utah for a lot of our materials, and then since we moved to Colorado, there's 3 or 4 in the Denver area also, and just really great finds and a great organization. So would recommend for anyone doing a build. It's a great way to find some cheaper materials, but still high quality.
Well, one of the days we were there, we were wandering around, and Kay found a big dome skylight, and like, I want that! I want to see the stars at night! Like, you realize it's like a steel roof with like aluminum sheeting. It's not just
and a curved roof, not a square roof either.
And like, that's okay, yeah. Like, we're doing the skylight! Like, okay.
And here it is!
And yeah, we ended up cutting, you know, get angle grinders and cutting the whole frame away and then putting in new beams and got it in. It's a 2-layered skylight, and at first we had a lot of issues with leaking around the side. I think we caulked the outside edges somewhere between 12 and 20 times.
Yeah, it just kept leaking. We were, this was before we put the floor in, but we had, you know, cardboard down on the ground and tarps.
Just a little drip.
Every day you'd come in, there'd just be a puddle, like, thought we fixed it. Nope.
But this kind of leads us into insulation and maybe how much energy we lose out of here, or just insulation in general. And we decided early on to make this interstate trailer as insulated as possible. And where a lot of RVs have water tanks in the beams on the under the floor, we put so much insulation on the bottom that we couldn't fit water down there, which is why we have big water tank on top. It was originally be a gravity feed, but we can show you that in a little bit. But there's probably 6+ inches of insulation on the bottom. You know, it's just a bunch of I-beams, and we would cut the pink, you know, rigid pink foam insulation, custom fit per square, do 2 layers of that, tarp, and then spray foam on the edges and the gaps.
That was an adventure in itself. We were under the trailer trying to press this stuff up. We were doing the spray foam. It's getting in our hair, just falling out. It was a disaster.
Doesn't come out of hair.
No, it doesn't.
Cut off like
had to
half her
cut
hair.
off a bunch of hair. It was quite the day, or couple days.
Yep. So,
but it worked. We have a very highly insulated floor, and then all around we have gotten some questions on this too, but kind of compromised our space a little bit for insulation. We ended up building in an interior frame off of the metal beams, coming in about, it's a sideways 2x4, so I guess about 4 inches in plus the backward space of the beams. We have about 6 inches of insulation all the way around, which took about a foot off of our inside space. But for us living off the grid, we're trying to do everything off solar. So heating in the winter, cooling in the summer, we really need to be highly insulated if our solar panels and battery backup is going to be able to handle heating and cooling. So that was kind of a decision we made.
Yeah, and I've been impressed so far. I mean, with
Yeah.
the double pane windows, and I think we have 1, 2, 3, 4 windows.
They're all very high energy efficiency
Yeah, and the
windows.
insulation, you know, we'll come in on a hot day and it'll still be cold from the night before. And I think we've been pretty impressed with the insulation so far, but I think that's, if you want to save energy and money on utilities, I think insulation's a very important thing.
It's not really a place to skimp, I would say. It was tedious and can be expensive if you don't find good deals, but I'd say it's worth your quality of life to put the time and money in to insulate really well. Yeah, so this is, we had this awkward gap. It's still a little bit in progress. We're going to do a nicer finish around here, but we ended up putting a big chunk of solid foam, probably, I think it's 3 inches wide, and we just cut strips of it and smashed it in there, and then also put reflective tape around the outside because we noticed in the summer it was getting really, really hot, and we're actually working on some sort of screen for the summer to be able to keep some of the light reflecting out. But we found the combination of the thick piece of foam plus this reflective, comes in a roll, it's kind of like bubble wrap reflective, and that combination has worked really well to keep this it keeps it extremely well insulated.
I think one of the big issues is that, it is a big beam of light coming in when it's 110 degrees out in the summer, and we could be cranking the AC in here, and we tried putting a whole sheet of this insulation on there, but it would heat up the insulation, and then that would just be a conducting heat source fighting the AC. And then we tried a blanket on top, which did a lot better because it was heating it up on the outside. We'd eventually like to have a little pull across screen, maybe a little multi-layer or something that doesn't really heat up that much, but it can definitely, you stand in the beam of light on a hot day. It's cold over here and it's like 100 degrees over there, so
it'll be really nice in the winter. When we get some winter sun, it'll help with heating for sure, but still figuring out a summer solution.
For the roof, it was super tricky because most of the trailer is a box with square sides, but the roof is this nice curve to it, which is pretty and it gives you a little more headspace, but it's pretty hard for non-professional construction workers trying to build a tiny home for the first time. It's kind of hard to insulate it and then get
a roof material on it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd say, even in a normal house, I guess there are some houses that have curved roofs, but curved roofs are just not a thing. So if you are going to buy a enclosed trailer, we would recommend they make square ones. That would be a much better idea. This was a huge pain in the butt.
So we ended up putting like 1.5 inches of insulation, the foam boards that we just stuck up between the steel beams, and then we got corrugated plastic, like the plastic you see on the for sale signs on the side of the road. They come in Home Depot for like 4 feet by 8 foot sheets, and it was like our third round of material that we tried on the roof. The first one was like this waterproof vinyl sheet that would be like on the inside of a bathroom, but it was so flaccid. It was just flopping around and we could not get it to stay up there. Nice thing about the corrugated plastic is it's rigid enough that if you stick it up there and it's long enough on each side, it'll kind of hold itself up. So we used some spray adhesive and some double-sided industrial adhesive tape to stick it up there. And like other things in the trailer's not quite done, we'd like to put a couple finishing layers of paint on it.
All right, so this area behind this curtain is our bathroom. So we opted to keep a more open version of the bathroom. We didn't put a door here necessarily in order to keep the feel more open and make it feel a little more spacious when you're getting ready in the bathroom in the morning. This is our Sunmar composting toilet. Sunmar is the global leader in self-composting toilets. This unit is their Excel NE unit, meaning it uses no water, no electricity. So basically the process, it's pretty simple. You start with some sawdust in there, or it's actually a special mix of theirs called Compost Sure, but essentially sawdust. And you start with some of that, you just use the bathroom normally, you spin it every once in a while, you have some microbes in there and they break it down. And one of the more unique features of Sunmar toilets is that they actually separate the solid from the liquid. People are always asking us, does it smell? Is that an issue in your house? And it really doesn't. The liquid gets separated and evaporates, which is what that tube is, that evaporating tube. So the liquid kind of all goes to the bottom, that vents out through that tube out through the roof. And if needed, you can get a fan to kind of promote that. But we have just been using the non-electric version and it's been working great. And it is slightly large, but the reason for that is it's the high volume unit. So we've been using this for 3+ months now and haven't had to empty it yet. So empty it maybe once, twice a year, depending on how often you use it. But for the two of us using it, morning and night and weekends, we probably will empty it 3 times this year, maybe. Yeah, so when this gets about half full or a little over half full, normally when you pull out this handle and you rotate the toilet clockwise every other day to kind of mix the compost. But then when you're ready to empty it, same handle, and you rotate it counterclockwise, and it all drops into this bottom bucket down here. This is a finishing drawer, so you let it sit there for I think another 2 weeks, and it kind of just finishes the composting process. And then at that point it's ready to use its soil. You can use it in your garden, or it's really nutritious compost at that point, all sterile, clean, ready to go. So we have not done that yet with this unit, but probably sometime in the next few weeks to months we'll probably be emptying it for the first time. So we don't have any black water because of this. We are, the liquid just evaporates. We end up with solid, clean compost. So it helps to minimize our water usage, obviously, having a composting toilet and then not having to deal with black water, gross, removal of liquid. So when we were designing this bathroom, we built a version, I guess designing the entire trailer, we kind of did a mock-up on the floor. We lined out the size of the trailer with blue tape, and we tried to stand around. We built a floor plan on some freeware software, but then kind of wanted to see how that would feel. And it's obviously really hard when, you don't have it to test. But for the bathroom especially, we had the blue tape out on the floor, and we were kind of talking and like, okay, so I'm in the bathroom in the morning, I want to do my hair. Like, literally, how much room do I need if I'm standing at the front of the toilet to be able to do my hair? And as you can see, that's exactly how we designed it. We made it pretty much exactly that space. And that's, again, why we did this curved curtain, so that when you close it, still it feels spacious and you can get ready and, move around, have your amenities. Recognizing this toilet is a little bit large, but needing to work around that and still make sure it's a reasonable sized bathroom for daily use. Yeah, so one of our favorite features, I guess this is back to the closet a little bit, but when we were living in a normal sized house in Salt Lake, we're like all people. You get home and you take off your clothes, throw out, your biking clothes, just kind of throw them on the floor. And we realized pretty quickly that wasn't going to cut it in a tiny home, or we'd just be in piles of stuff all the time. So our compromise was these little pull-out slidey handles, also available from IKEA. And so when we get home, you have your sweaty bike clothes, and you just, instead of throwing them on the floor, it's pretty easy, just throw them on a hook, and just gives us a little more storage space, which is, as you can see, a key in this entire house is maximizing the storage space. So you have this full blank side of a cabinet. So trying to really utilize that. We might even add more. They've been very useful so far.
All right, so we're transitioning on over to the kitchen, which is, I think, our favorite part of the tiny home. I was pretty impressed because we started this tiny home build a year and a half ago, and we thought it'd be a fun summer project. And I guarantee you, for anyone that's planning on doing this, it's going to take twice or 3 times or 4 times longer than you think it's going to take. Everyone I've talked to had the same thing. Like, I thought it was going to take a year. That was 4 years ago. So unless you know exactly what you're doing and you've done this many times, it's going to take longer than you think. The thing I think with a lot of people is, we don't have full time to build a tiny home. We're working 9 to 5, like most people, Monday to Friday. And I think there were many, many months where we didn't really do anything except work Monday to Friday, spend 12-hour days working on the tiny home, work Monday to Friday. And it's like, we were just joking, like, it'd be nice to go to a movie or something, or go for a bike ride. It's like, no, but this needs to be done, especially when we got closer to the deadlines of like a tiny home festival. Like, we kind of needed to finish it for that, and we were pulling like all-nighters trying to do it. So just know that it's gonna take a lot of extra time, and the spare time that you have, a lot of that goes into building the tiny home. But Kay just decided to use this free software she found online and just whip out in like 10 minutes this perfect kitchen vision that she had. And I gotta say that after like a year and a half ago, you just kind of whip it out and it looks almost exactly how she had it before we even had the trailer.
Our joke is we had planned about putting some pegboard and having things hanging, and I had color-coded the spatulas on my freeware software, and here they are.
We had spatulas that exactly matched. Yeah. It doesn't make any sense, but we can start, kind of work our way down the line. We have our go-to Keurig, because we're as addicted to coffee as most people. And this is actually a little rolly cart, because you can see in this kitchen that we don't have a lot of counter space, obviously, because it's a tiny trailer in a tiny home. And I guess we could start with this. This opens up to recycling and trash that last us a long time. We thought it'd be too small and we'd fill it up in like a day. I'd say it takes us 1 to 2 weeks to fill up this, because as we found, we just live simpler and smaller, and we don't have a giant fridge with a giant stuff we can throw away. We have a mini fridge right here. We have a backup mini fridge in the camper, so there's just not that much to throw away, and then we have some extra trash cans outside. But this lasts a long time. So as far as the trash goes, the details of it and dishes, and some people like throw away, use paper plates. It's convenient, but that'll fill up the trash pretty quickly. And we have our dish set here and our sink that we can clean all those dishes with. But for us, we go to Costco a lot. We kind of get the bulk items and pack it in the fridge where we can, and a family meal will last us like 2 or 3 days, and the only thing we're going to throw away is like the little plastic bin that usually is recycled, and a recycle bin outside. And I think an important thing is being so cautious on recycling, because we put our trash cans out our new home on the street last week, and our recycling bin was over more than full. It was just packed, and we had like a quarter the amount of trash. And
yeah, we've been discussing it, and it just, I think if you live consciously, don't really generate that much trash. Another big thing, which we can show you later, but we've been starting to compost. We're actually because we have the space now at this new place, we're getting a really big composter, so that's going to eliminate a lot more waste. But for now, we've been using our garden tower outside, has a center tube that is vermicomposting, so worms break down your compost, and so we've been able to put a lot of our food scraps in there, and that helps to eliminate waste. If you're not throwing away food, you're not throwing away anything recyclable, there's just not really that much that you end up throwing away.
So it can be a little overwhelming, if you're in a small house and your trash keeps filling up.
Yeah.
But if you take an extra second to take the biodegradable stuff one way, recycling the other, and there's not that much trash. And I think another good option is having backup outside. If it does fill up, and we could just take a little bag out, drop it outside, put it back in, and
I think also people think living tiny, you wouldn't want to buy in bulk, because stuff like Costco, they come in a big package. But back to our need for a lot of storage, we'll show you we have pretty massive amount of food storage on the side. Because of that, we decided it was kind of worth our time to be able to have the storage to buy things in bulk and not waste all the packaging. And it's kind of, obviously it's a trade-off. You are taking some of your space, but you don't really have to worry about trash because you're buying in bulk. And that, from the vision of operation off the grid, living sustainably, that was kind of a key for us, from an environmental perspective as well.
And as we move back to the kitchen tour, this whole unit, I was mentioning lack of counter space. It's on little caster bearing wheels, and it has a little cutting board that Kay just came home one day and was like, check out this cutting board I made. Like, oh, okay. You're just gonna be a professional construction now and just make some fancy cutting boards. So she made this breadboard, and we just bolted it to side drawer sliders, and that tucks away. And then we're planning...
In general, in this cabinet, we purchased from IKEA. Again, they make these kind of modular, self-designed kitchen cabinets. So the basic frame of this, the front, side, and the bottom slider, were from that set from IKEA. And then we found these countertops used on Craigslist. They match our full kitchen counter over here, and we just cut a section, custom made the top. We're gonna obviously clean this up a little bit, make it a little nicer, but...
We did quite a bit of that, where we'd buy IKEA and use half of it, and then recycle the rest or restore something. But this cabinet is like 50% our materials and our ideas, and then 50% IKEA. It's basically IKEA foundation customized for us. So it'll have the breadboard here. We're gonna put a second one, like a plastic cutting board there, so you can cut some chicken and stuff. And then we'll eventually like to have this cut into an upper drawer with the cutting boards, and then we can just pull out the trash if we want. But this allows us to have extra space, if we're in the kitchen and need a little more counter space, and be in here. And this sink also functions. We just put on this cap that we found, this countertop, I guess, on Craigslist, and we cut part of it onto this IKEA, and this fit perfectly on the sink, so we put that on there. And this lets us kind of be adjustable for what we need when we need it.
Yeah, if you know you're doing a big baking expedition, which I do, hence the 4-burner stove, full oven. I love to cook and bake, and so, you know, if you're doing a big prep day, you put that countertop here and you don't really need the sink and get full extra counter, but then normally we do leave it just as an open sink. So this range here, I believe it's made by its Premier. I think it's a 20-inch gas range, 4-burner, full oven, broiler drawer, just kind of a full functional gas propane stove. And we found this guy works great. It was a little bit of a challenge.
We got an electric one first. Yeah, our electric range, and it had too much of a draw, and our solar system and batteries couldn't handle, because, you know, that's a lot of energy going into the heat, and it fit, it looked great, and we couldn't make it work, so we returned it and found this one.
And the nice thing about this one, talking about energy draw, it's actually, the ignition is battery, so it's got 8 AA batteries, so there's actually no energy draw at all from this. So the pilot light draws off of batteries, and then it's a propane system. And we did have a bit of a challenge setting it up in Colorado. We think there may have been an issue with the oxygen. I mean, obviously we're at higher elevation and it takes some modification of the propane, but once we got it, you know, you just had to adjust some of the valves and open them all the way. And
yeah, so we have the classic kind of RV setup where there's the big propane tanks on the front triangle hitch of the trailer, and then we just bought some piping at Home Depot.
Cast iron piping.
Yeah, cast iron piping, and checked some YouTube to make sure we were doing it right, and then ran the propane under, and then we did get the propane tanks recycled, so refurbished, and we had that guy check our system and make sure, because like the electricity, and you know, there's some things you don't want to think it's gonna work until it blows up your house.
This guy, so when we bought our original electric range, we got that at a used appliance store, and then we started looking around used appliance stores for propane one once we realized the electricity was going to be an issue. Couldn't find anything, so it came down to just finding a gas range of this size, and this one came off of Home Depot. I think they source it from somewhere else, but we just kind of Googled like 20-inch gas range and tried to find the best reviews available. This one was getting pretty good reviews, and it was the size and style we wanted, and it's worked out really well. And it's amazing to have a full functional kitchen. You know, in the little pop-up we have a really small 2-burner stove, and it's not reasonable. And here, we have
the best feature. So, you know, a bunch of cabinet space here, and, you know, some drawers that Kay actually, when she decided to make that cutting board, she sneakily decided to make some drawers too. Just came home with these custom drawers to fit our needs, were utensils and, you know, kitchen stuff.
Yeah, because these cabinets came from Restore, again, and it was a full cabinet set. It was actually the first thing we had in this entire house. We bought a cabinet set, and all of these nice maple cabinets were $20, the full set. But it didn't come with any drawers, so I ended up buying an extra cabinet and broke it all down and custom made drawers with the same wood so that they would match. So these pots were one of my big splurges on this house, but we have 2 different sets of these in different sizes, and they stack, so all of, you know, normally pots are just a mess and they take up so much space, and so you could have like 1 pot in a tiny home. And me being a big cook, I really wanted to have some nice pots and pans, and these all have, I guess they're designed to be space-saving pots, and they all stack, and the lids stack right on top of them, so we have like kind of an overwhelming number of pots now, like more than we actually use, but it's really nice. You have always the pot that you need and the size and the frying pan, and they're awesome.
Say where we did try and save as much money as possible and went to Restore, and you know, we'd buy this cabinet set for $20 instead of $800. There are some things that I think, like these pots, you spend the right amount of money, it's going to be more, to make it fit and work seamlessly in a tiny home. Because, like, sure, we can get, I took apart a 200-foot chicken coop on a cattle, horse, chicken ranch up in Park City, and just on Craigslist, like, free wood. And I just, like, there all day just smashing these, you know, older 2x4s, but you cut them through and, you know, they look fine on the inside. They're structurally sound. So we got, you know, a bunch of 2x4s for free. That stuff doesn't matter, but these pots and the details, we're going to tuck things in like water heaters and water pumps, and there's little things where I think spending a little extra money instead of using what you have at home to like, yeah, just take the pot set and throw it in the tiny home. Like, it could be better and it could be more efficient, and I think there are things like that that we took extra time to make sure everything's fit perfectly seamlessly. So the brand of these pots was that Calphalon.
They're expensive, but I got them on, there was like a Black Friday sale, and I got the full set for like 50% off. Nice. Wouldn't have gotten them otherwise, they're expensive, but they make all different, like, yeah, we have these, we have the full, like the 2 frying pans that are this size and stack, we have the big one, we have a big pot, they're amazing.
Together. The combination with Kay's fancy pots, our fancy pots, and the range here, we have the sink, and we just got a random, I guess the details of the sink are a little complicated because it's sideways, and we were trying to figure out, should we put it perpendicular, sideways, parallel, but we wanted to use as much counter space as possible, but we wanted a usable sink that we could actually do dishes in, you know, not like a little bathroom sink where you're just washing your hands in there.
On that note though, this actually, so we had a really hard time finding a sink because a normal kitchen sink is too big. It's really hard to find a sink that fits a tiny home. So this actually is a bathroom sink from IKEA, but it's their larger
on
model.
Top of the counter,
yeah,
and not sit in.
Exactly, because that's the issue. We actually don't have the fridge, as you can see, is right here. We have another water storage tank right behind here, and so there wasn't any vertical room. So finding a sink that sat on top and also had kind of a flush drain was really difficult. But this bathroom sink from IKEA is designed to go on top of a cabinet, and it has this crazy custom, like the drain here basically goes down and immediately at a 90-degree angle. Most sinks go down and then have the trap and all that. This one goes horizontal and then down, and so it's kind of a weird find, but it works really, really well for this application.
A bunch of random products we found and fit together. But yeah, we just originally had a bathroom faucet, and it was all right. Had the little lever up here, but it was kind of hard to get to, and we wanted a faucet that rotated, and this you could get the full water in on the range and be lazy with it and not take it into the sink. And we found this at Restore, you know, a nice kitchen faucet, like $300-400. This one, I think it was $5. And I ground down, it used to only rotate about 90 degrees, but we wanted it to go over here too. I just took a Dremel and ground down the little metal bits inside and got a full rotating $5 kitchen sink.
So that was, I think, the singular biggest challenge of this entire project for us. Besides, you know, stripping down the trailer, it took like a month, but we weren't, you know, we're doing it every weekend, whatever.
We originally weren't going to have water.
Yeah, we weren't going to have water.
5-gallon jug, and you know, we'll just kind of pour it out when we want water.
Yeah, and then it went, so it morphed from, we're not going to have any water, and then we're like, okay, let's do a water storage tank on the roof, and we'll just gravity feed, and we'll just have kind of a standard, you know, like, I don't know, some water that drips in.
Little trickle drip,
and, you know, we won't have any heating or cooling. It'll just be whatever temperature it is outside, and that'll be fine. And then we're like, so we could do better than that. So we actually ended up doing a full plumbing system. Neither one of us is a plumber, and Reed came up with this crazy design. So it's kind of complicated. There's 120 gallons in these PVC pipes on the roof. So that's our main water supply. That comes down through everything, has a pump. We have an inline tankless water heater that feeds the entire system. So sink, shower, washer, dryer. But then we were thinking, you know, in the winter, for the most part, those big PVC pipes aren't going to freeze. They're 4 inches. They're probably going to be fine for most of the winter, but we wanted to have the option if it's, you know, below freezing for 2 weeks, which could happen in Colorado. We want to be able to still have water. So we have a backup tank behind these cabinets. We got it custom built from plasticmart.com. It's just a big plastic water tank that has another 25 gallons, and we can feed that directly from a city water inlet and fill that up. So we always have 25 gallons inside, you know, in front of the insulation, so it's not going to freeze. And then that is also connected to the entire system. And then our third option, we can plug in directly from city water, and that feeds the entire system as well. So we have like really 3 options for water at all times. And then on the back side, we haven't quite set it up yet because we just moved here, but we have this really cool gray water system that treats gray water within itself. So all the drains feed into this gray water tank. It passes through like 5 or 6 different filters, comes out as usable water you can use for plants or watering the lawn or whatever else.
And one of the coolest things I think with this water storage system is, it's 120 gallons in PVC pipes, and at no point do we know how much water we have left. Like, should I take a shower? Like, is this a day's supply or a month's supply? You just have no idea how much water there is. But it actually turned out to work quite well with the huge tank on top and then a smaller tank downstream of it. And the way we set it up is most of the water naturally wants to come from the higher tank. It's just forced down the pipe. And then there's just this T intersection with the 20-gallon tank. And it turns out that all the water up here will drain before it pulls water from the backup tank. So we'll just be going for weeks at a time, and then at some point it'll start pumping out air and it'll seem like we're out of water, but then we just go on the roof, close just a little close valve from the exit of the main tank, and then it'll start drawing the water out of the 20-gallon tank. So that way we just don't worry about it until we close that roof valve, and then we know we have 20 gallons left, which is a week, 3, 4, 5 days.
So we have a little low-key video website of our own, which we can link to at the end or in the bottom description. But if you are interested in the details of our plumbing, we have like at least 3 or 4 videos about it. It was a massive undertaking, and I think anyone trying to do it, you might be able to get some ideas from us. Maybe what not to do more than what to do. But
we basically built the whole house, put all the walls up, did everything, then decided to have water. Took all the boards down, took all the insulation off, rebuilt the entire plumbing system, and then put all the walls back up. So
I think it's been working pretty well as of now. One key, we haven't had a full winter here yet, but we did take some pretty, again with the insulation, we were trying to be overly cautious and prepare for the worst. And so we did insulate all the pipes with those pipe foamy things that, the rolls of foam that kind of seal around it.
Pool noodles.
Yeah, pool noodles with a slit, and then you seal it. And then we also, anything that's vaguely exposed to the outside, and our entire hot water line is wrapped in electric cable. So we have a little cord in the back, plug it in, and it does kind of a low voltage draw, and it keeps the pipes from freezing in the winter. So in theory,
we found that at an RV store.
Yeah,
it's just as long as you want cable, you plug it in, and it can just keep things slightly warmer so it doesn't freeze.
Yeah. So we have not tried that yet. We probably won't run it unless it gets really cold, because all the pipes are inside the insulation, or kind of halfway through the insulation. But figured it was a good precaution to have to ensure that this water system doesn't freeze and burst in the winter. So this fridge was chosen partly based on size. We had a very limited area we were working with, and again we did kind of build all this out in a floor plan. It was like, well, this is the space we have for a fridge. So we found this one, I think again just through Home Depot. So one of the keys for us was that it was Energy Star rated and the lowest draw possible, because we're running entirely off of solar in this setup, and we needed to make sure our fridge could run. And this thing is pretty impressive. Like, we plugged it in and it draws, 60, 70 watts for a little while to cool down, and then it's just 0. Like, it's
kind of do cycles.
Enough.
It'll be like 5 watts for like an hour, and then 60 watts for 20 minutes, and then just zero for an hour.
And
like,
it
so kind
of to hold coolness very well. It's not, it's not huge, but for us, it's got kind of enough storage. And we were also a key here, a lot of the smaller mini fridges have a lot of fridge space and a really tiny freezer. And for us, buying things at Costco, buying in bulk, having a freezer that was a reasonable size was a pretty big deal. So our freezer's not quite as big as the fridge, but close. And we're able to, get some frozen pot stickers or ravioli or whatever and have them always on hand.
Snacks.
Which is nice. And yeah, so moving down, I guess. Well, actually, this is one of our favorite features as well. We don't have a dishwasher. I know maybe some tiny homes do. I think probably most don't, but we do have a full set of, standard ceramic dishes. And when we are done eating, we need to wash them by hand. And one of our favorite features we found, we got this really awesome drying rack set up. So just, a standard little towel, and this guy fits right on top of the fridge, pulls out, and we have like a full size drying rack. So we do the dishes, we dry everything, usually right before bed, and then come back in the morning, you can just pop it away and have full counter space. So that's been a pretty good solution to enable us to use real dishes and kind of live a normal life that way. But as you can see what I'm tucking this into, this is our inline tankless water heater. So this runs off of propane as well. And this, again, was really a space determination. We decided, because as Reed mentioned, we decided to put in plumbing after everything else. I already had this whole vision set up. We already had all of these materials, and we had this like tiny little gap, and like, where are we going to put a water heater? And this was really the only space we had left in the entire kitchen, and it's 5 inches. And we're like, can we find a water heater that's 5 inches? And there aren't very many, but there's like 1 or 2 models, and this is one of them. And so we literally chose this based on the fact that we had 5 inches available. So it's been working really well. Vents to the outside and has a propane line going to it. It is drawing electricity, but pretty minimal, nothing that ever breaks our solar. And that's kind of just to start up, and then it runs off of propane. Again, just being able to kind of live a normal life. A microwave is kind of key. We like to have our tortillas in the microwave or heat up some of our Costco food or something like that. We were most worried about the draw being off of solar. A lot of microwaves are at least 1,000 watts, and so we're running off of solar by goal 0, and these battery banks down here are Yeti. We have the lithium Yeti 3000 and the Yeti 1250 lead acid, and these are just big battery banks. So basically our solar powers the battery banks powers the rest of the house. So the Yeti 3000s are able to handle up to a 3000 watt surge, but they can't really maintain that for very long. So if you get a microwave that's trying to draw 1,500 watts and then you're trying to also have the lights and also have something else, like, it's not really going to happen. So this microwave we got as kind of the smallest or lowest wattage microwave we could find. I think it nominally draws like 700 watts. That means it's 700 watt output, which we learned. And that means it actually draws about like 850, 900 watts because there's loss of efficiencies. But this guy, we are not able to run it off of the Yeti 1250, which was originally the battery bank that we had. And that's kind of why we upgraded to the Yeti 3000, was to be able to run the microwave. We found our system, in theory, should be able to handle the microwave and other things. In practice, doesn't always work. Sometimes the microwave will kind of trip out and we have to unplug other things or, make sure the light's off and then start the microwave. But it's not too much of a hassle, and it does. I mean, we've run things for 10 minutes in this microwave and the batteries can handle it. So that's been pretty cool. That was kind of ours as well. So when we originally had this microwave, it was just sitting on the counter. And after about 2 weeks of that, we realized it was just a waste of our counter space. We were putting stuff on top of it, but it was kind of a mess. And so we had an extra little piece of this wood that matches our cabinets, and we custom built this shelf to hold the microwave. And that gives us just a lot more counter space. It really opens up the rest of this. And, you're prepping, you have room back there. So it's been key in maximizing the space in this kitchen. This we got also very early on in the process from someone on Craigslist. It's IKEA, surprise, but pretty massive modular bookshelf. Yeah, so the idea behind this, as Reed mentioned, we are people who have kind of an average normal amount of stuff, and coming from living in a full-scale house, downsizing to a tiny home, we weren't really the types who wanted to get rid of everything in our lives. We believe in living small and contained and earth-friendly and sustainable, but that doesn't really mean you have to give up everything. We're not really the types of people who are going to live like a very minimalist lifestyle. So we wanted to be able to maintain all of our amenities while still living in a tiny home. And part of that for me, I'm a big reader. I have a lot of books and read as well. And we have, all of our climbing books and guidebooks, and I'm taking classes, so I need to have a place to store my school stuff, and just kind of the general amenities you would have in a bookshelf or drawers in your house. And we didn't go through the whole process of getting rid of everything in our lives. We basically just converted it all into this space. And it's worked out extremely well. It just makes us not really have to worry about storage. And it also gives us a nice place to put our goal 0 battery banks down here. You can keep them outside, but here, especially lithium, you want to kind of have in a temperature controlled environment. And this gives us easy access that we can always, if anything's going on with the electric, we just can have it right here to fix or whatever we need to do. Yeah, it makes it feel more like home too, that not everything's always just tucked away in drawers that it feels like we have our things and it's our space, and we've really enjoyed.
Here we are back in the garage area. You can see we started on the front of the trailer. You kind of walk through that hallway through the kitchen and cubbies on the right to come into this area. This originally was gonna be extra storage space. You know, it's like we got a lot of stuff. We got bikes and that storage we were saying about earlier. Like, we have a lot of things we need to have space for. So it'd be nice if we just had the back third of the trailer as kind of the garage. It turned out to be the everything else room. You know, we have the kitchen, living room, clothes and bathroom up there, and this is the garage on this side, and we got like the washer dryer and the shower. We'll show you that in a bit. And then extra storage. Pretty much everything else we need kind of comes into this room. So you can see on this side we just got this nice little workbench that Harbor Freight for like 150 bucks. Just fit perfectly in this little space. And then, like the kitchen, we have the pegboard, and you know, just got a bunch of tools. Most of them are here. Some are working on the house over there that we're trying to fix up a little bit, but great little area for, you know, projecting, working. This is an issue if we're moving, because these are not going to stay on the wall at all if we're driving. So while stationary, it's great, but we need to take, you know, an extra time to take all this off the wall with all the other storage things if this place is going to be moving. But now that we're here, it's great. And, you know, just cleaning supplies, random storage stuff, tools, and it's kind of the back project productive part of the tiny home.
Yeah, that was kind of another, so we were planning on keeping our bikes back here, and we had this whole setup on the back barn doors. We were going to have these bike mounts, and then we realized pretty quickly, you know, I have 2 bikes, Reed has 1 bike plus extra tires, and it was going to take up most of this space just with bikes. So we've been storing the bikes outside and have a little shed area we keep them in to keep them dry. Just not really feasible to always have them taking up all the space in here. So moving over to this side, this is our shower / laundry area. I guess the first thing, most tiny homes you see will not have a washer dryer. We were not planning on it. We were just going to use this for storage, and then we were just wandering around Home Depot, and this is like a $2,000+ combo washer dryer ventless unit. So it does washing, drying, no vent, pretty low water and energy draw, and it was on sale for like $700, so over half off. And like, wow,
that's too good.
Here it is. Someone had returned it because they thought it took too long, which it does take a really long time, but we just will start it when we leave in the morning, and especially running off of solar power, we want to do it during the day so we can utilize the solar energy recharging our batteries during the day. It's a little difficult to try to do it at night when it's dark, but during the day, you know, you set it to go before you leave for work, and you come home and all your clothes are done. So it's been working really well.
Yeah, I think it's one of the details that, you know, not many tiny homes will have a washer dryer, but it's one of those little things that can increase the quality of life if you can fit it in there. So you don't have to go to the, you know, laundromat once a week or something. Yeah. And it turned out to be incredibly convenient, and it might take 4 or 5 or 6 hours to do a load, but you know, you start in the morning, you go to work, come back, and got a load of laundry.
Really an issue.
So in this corner, it's not quite finished yet. We're still a little bit of work in progress. As we mentioned, we right now are tending to shower. You know, we commute to work and shower there, so it just hasn't really been a priority. But as winter is getting closer, we're hoping to finish this up. This will be our indoor shower. So it's a pretty neat little model. So, you know, right now you can see it's just open counter space. You can use this if we're doing a project for extra workbench, or if you're folding the laundry or anything, you can just use it as kind of usable space. Then when you do want to take a shower, open this guy up, and we're gonna have a little latch or something. This opens up, and you step into a metal bucket in here, which this is currently a little camp shower that's probably going to be the original version of our shower. We're going to mount the head over here, and it just runs off of propane. We have our hot and cold water intake there. And then this shower curtain just drops right in, and it'll fill in the bucket. And pull it around, and you have a full shower in this area. And again, we kind of did this off of feel, where we had one of us standing in the corner and like, okay, gonna wash my hair, do my, you know, shave my legs, like, is this a big enough space? I don't know. And we made it about that size. We haven't used it yet, so it remains to be seen how how great this is, but
But it'll be indoor.
It'll be indoor, and again, we were planning on just not having a shower and like, we'll always shower at work, but you know, things come up and we're doing a project and you get all gross and dirty and then a friend invites you to dinner and you want to be able to take a shower. And so we decided it was worth it to put in an indoor shower, but we're not going to be using it all that often because we do shower at work. And so that's kind of why it's a little bit annoying. I mean, not annoying, but it's a little bit more of a process to, you know, it's not always there ready to go, that you have to open it up and pull the curtain in.
It's an option when you need it.
It's an option when you need it, and it's not very difficult to set up, not so difficult that it's going to prevent us from using it. So that is a little bit still work in progress, but will be coming, and we're excited about it.
Cool, so we're going to start stepping outside, and you'll kind of notice that the back part of the trailer, it being a toy hauler, has big barn door openings. Some of these trailers, they'll open into a ramp. This one in particular has just 2 large doors that we stripped down, insulated with an inch thick foam, and then put the same hardboard material, put some texture on it, painted it, so it's as insulated as we could reasonably get it with that much width that we have. But it's great because it kind of just opens up the whole tiny home, and we didn't really realize that early on, but once we started living in it, you know, nice warm summer day, you open it up and it creates just this big open space that is the outside.
Yeah.
And doesn't make it feel so claustrophobic.
It's also really nice. We can use it as kind of a secondary entrance, our primary entrance being that front door, but if we're coming in from a project, have the bikes, you know, super muddy, we can open these doors, come in this way. And this is one really nice feature we have. So this floor back here, this is marmoleum. Huge shout out to the team at Underfoot Floors in Salt Lake City, Utah. They helped us out with this flooring. This marmoleum, it's an earth-friendly version of linoleum, so really good, sustainable, good for the environment, and just a rugged, durable, great for a garage area. Not going to get scratched up, super easy to clean. So that's been awesome. And they also helped us out with, might have noticed, our beautiful Australian hardwood floor, which is all in the front, and that again is all eco-friendly, sustainably harvested wood. And that team was awesome in helping us get that set up. And it makes the front half just look so beautiful, makes it look like a real finished home, which is huge inside a trailer, tiny home, makes it just a beautiful space. So huge shout out to that team, definitely check them out. Link will be below this video. So really briefly, this is not entirely set up yet, but this will be our gray water treatment system. So this is built by Aqua 2 Use. We found it through a company in California. Looks kind of just like a storage bin, but you open this guy up and there's a number of these filters, and each one of these is designed to trap a different size and chemistry of waste material. So the water, you hook it up to your drain outlet, the water flows through and comes out at the end as water that is clean enough to use, probably not for, definitely not for drinking, but used for irrigation for plants or the lawn or whatever. They make a version that has a pump, so you could put this anywhere. We got the gravity-fed version, so we're gonna have to bury this in order to be below the exit of our water. So having just moved here, we have not gotten around to burying it yet, but that will be our water treatment option for gray water. So this is maybe my favorite feature of the entire tiny home. This is our garden tower, Garden Tower 2. You should check out Garden Tower Project, link also below this video. So this is specifically designed to enable people in small spaces like ours to have a full garden. I worked as a gardener for a year and a half back in Utah and just love plants and vegetables, and again, adding to, you know, operation off the grid, being able to grow our own food was a huge bonus to this project. So essentially this is a vertical planter. You can fit up to 50 plants within the 4 square feet footprint, which is just insane. As you can tell, it's October, so it's like pretty late in the growing season, and this thing is still just going crazy. Our tomatoes have been just like, we don't even know what to do with them. We have so many tomatoes, and you know, we're growing everything from kale to herbs to broccoli and cauliflower.
Purple peppers.
Purple peppers, which I've never seen before, but they apparently exist. So this thing is just amazing. It's
Composting.
yeah, so one of the cooler features in this central tube is actually vermicomposting. So the idea is you put your kitchen scraps in that tube, and there's worms in there, and there's perforated holes all the way down the column. So the worms kind of move in and out, and they bring nutrients out to the roots of the plants, and they break down your compost. So that helps us treat our food scraps, have less waste that we have to throw away, and it converts all that organic waste into vegetables and flowers and plants, and can't really say enough about how amazing this thing has been. This was our first season using it, and we're totally in love with it. So many tomatoes. Yeah, and you can, if you have taller plants, you stake them up out the top like this, and you can also grow, melons and crazy large vegetables, pumpkins, and you stake them out the bottom. So definitely a really cool system. Would highly recommend checking it out.
Cool, so here we are on the outside by our front door. The interstate trailer came with this setup that we already have. It has the little side human-sized door, and that gives us the 2 access points from the back, being the barn doors, and then just the main door just coming into the kitchen living room area. This one is a little tricky because it was an aluminum sheet with a very basic door, so it's kind of our weak spot in insulation. We are planning on, putting, like the garage doors, maybe an inch of insulation on the inside of that, and trying to improve our insulation unit overall. And as you can see here, we have kind of our AC heating unit. We originally got this for AC, but we haven't set up our eco-friendly heating system because, as you well know, AC and heat, take most of the energy with utilities. So we used it this summer for AC, and it just kind of pulls in air from the inside, pushes it back in, changing the temperature for warmer or colder environments.
And this is actually designed by a company specifically for tiny homes. They make them for like dog sheds and tiny homes. And we got it as an AC unit. It's 5,000 BTU of cooling, and it draws like 600 to 700 watts, which is really, really low for cooling.
So just, significantly.
And it also sits outside, which, being in a tiny space, we don't have room to put a unit inside. So all that from the inside, you probably didn't even notice it. They're just little vents that are flush mount against the wall. You can't even tell they're there. And this thing just cranks out AC. The site, which made by Climate Right, I believe. And on the site, you can actually just put in the specs of your house, and they tell you what size unit you need. So this was the one that was recommended for our unit, and it's been working really well. And
yeah, it's just a fraction amount of the energy. If you just buy a standard house AC unit, this is going to be a fraction of the amount of energy used per square foot needed to heat and cool the area.
Yeah, and as Reed mentioned, we're currently using it as a temporary heat source. It does do heat and cool. It does take significantly more energy to heat. So we have really low profile, thin convection heater that we've tried out, and we haven't gotten to mount it yet, but as it gets colder, we're going to get that running. Should be a lot lower energy draw to heat the house in winter.
So as we move to other parts of the exterior, I think one of the biggest things, one of the first things people notice is the giant PVC tubes that are on the roof. Some people think it's like rain capture, some people think it's a water heater, but it's just our water tank, because like we mentioned earlier, we couldn't really put the standard RV tanks underneath the floor because we had too much insulation, and our thought was just put a big tank on top and have it water gravity feed. We eventually did integrate a little pump that's tucked into the wall right next to the window there, pulls the water down so we get nice water pressure, but it's basically just went to a plumbing store in Salt Lake City and got, I think there's 10 foot 4-inch diameter PVC pipes, and then just made a grid system. So we put on the metal racks so we could get it off the roof, set it on there, and my first concern was that it's gonna heat up. Most people that use solar showers, they use the black PVC. It's usually a tube on the side of their van, and then they have a hose, heats up during the day, you do your activities, and then you have the warm water at the end of the day, which is nice. This isn't black, but the sun is powerful enough that I was concerned it could be awkwardly warm water when we wanted cold water. Turns out that hasn't really been a thing. We've had a couple days this summer, it's like 105 degrees all day, and the water's not cold, but I think there's enough water in there that it's gonna pretty much stay the same temperature most all of the time. And also on the other side of the spectrum, in the winter, I'm not too worried about 80, 100-gallon tanks freezing overnight. It's gonna take really long spell of really cold weather for that to be an issue. We just have to make sure, you know, it's not becoming close to empty. There's like 5 gallons and then it freezes, but even with that, there's enough space in there that I'm not too worried about it. My dad up in Idaho has a very similar setup on his yurt, and he says he doesn't worry about it freezing if it's 30 degrees or more. So multiple nights of 29, 30, 31, doesn't worry about it. And he's been doing that for 15 years. So got that as a,
and
as
we
a backup.
mentioned, we so that little pipe sticking out as a drain. So if it does get really cold, we just drain the big tank, shut off to the main system, and then we can run from that 25 gallons inside, so we won't be without water in the winter.
Yeah, one of the cool additions that came along with it is we were doing solar panels, which we got a bunch of support through Goal Zero, which will also be linked to the bottom of this video. And we could see the solar panels on the roof. We have them at an angle right now facing south because as the days are getting shorter, the sun is getting lower. And I usually just have them bungee strapped around the PVC pipes, strap them down a little more if we're driving down the freeway or something. But like we mentioned, we don't move that much. And that allows us to just unhook them. The Goal Zero Boulder 100s come with a little kickstand, so you could just take them out, drop the kickstand, put them at the right angle, point them in the right direction. So we just undo the bungees and just kind of drop them in the PVC pipe slots and put them where we want. And those actually act as a second benefit of creating shade for the water tank. So they take most of the heat from the sun. The tank underneath stays relatively cool. And then we just have the solar water tank storage.
Yeah, so we have 600 watts right now of solar up there so we have 6 of those Boulder 100 panels, and that's feeding, as we mentioned, we have Yeti 1250, which is 1250 watt hours of lead acid storage, and then 2 Yeti 3000s, which is 3000 watt hours of lithium ion battery storage. And with that setup, we've been pretty set for power. It's obviously going to be a little bit more of a challenge heading into winter as we get less and less sun. Considering maybe adding even a few more panels just to, for the security. But for now, this combination working pretty flawlessly. Goal Zero is just a very easy system to use. We're both working in the renewable energy field, but don't have a ton of experience with solar installation. And a lot of the solar panels we found took a fair amount of wiring. You have to deal with inverters and all this kind of crazy setup. And Goal Zero, it's literally, you have the one panel, there's a cord that goes between that panel, you put it through your roof and plug it into the battery bank. That's it. There's no wiring.
They call it the plug and play, where you just get the panel, you get the battery, you plug it, whatever you want, into that battery, and you just go from there. That being said, from my personal experience, I would say you'd probably want twice the amount of solar panels and battery storage that you think you need, because real life happens and it's going to be raining for 3 weeks right when you think you need electricity. And so we're planning on down the line, getting maybe a couple more solar panels, but definitely get more than you think you need. Also, Goal Zero is a fantastic company. It's super easy if you're not a full-time electrician, which most of us are not. For those of you that are, that's your benefit, that you can do whatever you want to do and how you want to do it. This is very simple. Anyone can get it, but it's going to be more expensive with that convenience. So if you get a tiny home and you want solar, if you're going to set up 600 watts, so we have, it could easily be $3,000, $4,000, $5,000, $6,000. They were very helpful with us, and we worked with them and representing them at different shows outside, and we put the time and hours in for them to support us in doing this, so we got to save most all of that money that we could spend that could easily have been a $6,000, $7,000 solar panel setup. And I you gotta say, if you know how to set up a solar system yourself, I think you could get the same system we have for $2,000 or $3,000. I'd say, you know, it's going to be, Goal Zero is going to be a little more expensive, but it works great. We've had a fantastic experience with it. It just depends on how much time and knowledge you want to put into doing it yourself, type of thing. For the original plan for our tiny home, we were living in Salt Lake City at the time, and we knew we were coming to Denver within a year. And we thought it'd be cool if we could build a house and kind of take the home with us to the new location. So we started talking about tiny home ideas, and obviously it needed to be on wheels, so a pretty easy solution for that early on was, yeah, flatbed trailer or a trailer of some sort, and then we kind of just improve it from there. And then that led to about 6 months of searching on Craigslist and contacting people and running around the city looking at different options, and I think we went through 2 trailers that we bought it for a couple $100, you know, like a 20-foot trailer, and turned out that the axles were shot, and because we took it to the trailer repair and they said it'd be $6,000 to repair it, so that wasn't going to happen. So we recycled that at a crush yard, and then eventually found this one, got it a really good deal, and it was basically a 2006-ish interstate trailer, kind of toy hauler for like snowmobiles and ATVs and that kind of thing. It was pretty well used. You can kind of see from the outside it's a well used trailer, very loved, but our first step was stripping it down to just the bare metal skeleton so we could start from there, not have oil, you know, soaked floors and stuff like that. So,
and one thing, we did buy this used and it was great. We thought we were saving a lot of money. One thing, for people looking to start their own builds, we might recommend buying a new trailer. It kind of wasn't worth the time and money. We had to, when ripping up the plywood floors, we had to basically cut out every single screw individually in order to rip up the floor because they was so rusted out, and it's been a huge challenge. Just nothing's square because it's settled a little bit and the metal beams were rusted out, and it's just the amount of time and effort and money we've put in to try to fix it up from the used state is maybe not worth it. And then, you know, of course it's a used trailer, it's not going to last as long. So I think in terms of our operation off the grid, it was great to be able to reuse a already existing trailer and not buy new, but from a practical perspective, maybe something we would have done differently.
If you think about it, you start with the used trailer, and the amount of man hours that it took us just to get past the rust and the screws and the non-square architecture of it, we'd probably cut even or be about the same if we just bought a brand new trailer and not spend 3 months trying to just get it ready to build. So
in order to strip it down. And then another challenge that people might not think of when you're working with this, we thought it would be really great because it's already an enclosed box, but you have these metal steel beams. We realized pretty quickly if we need to, you know, attach cabinets, attach anything, we need some way of drilling into that, and those beams are really difficult, especially a rusted out beam. So we ended up doing an internal frame of 2x4s over the metal beams all the way around. And we kind of thought, you know, some of the other style build is just get a flatbed trailer, build it up with a wood frame, and again, that may have actually been easier because we ended up having to frame the entire thing anyway.
I would recommend that because, like, this is great. It has a roof and walls and like a structure to start with, but it's not designed to be a house, and it's not designed to have pictures and appliances and things in the walls because, first of all, it's a sheet of aluminum, which doesn't count as a wall. And I think it would be a lot easier if you started with a flatbed trailer and built up from there with normal house 2x4s and appliances and
The one
features.
nice thing though was that we did have a roof all the way through, so we started in the spring. We were planning on getting it done over the summer. That didn't happen, but by the time the winter came, we obviously still weren't done, but we had a roof. We didn't have to worry about winterizing things. It was already a structure that was winterized. We could continue to work throughout the winter without having to put too much into it. So I am a chemical engineer. I work over at the National Renewable Energy Lab and working on my master's degree at Colorado School of Mines. And from here, the commute is actually not bad at all. It's about 25-minute bike ride for me to work. So I bike most days to work. When I do have to go to school, sometimes I'll drive, but it's a very easy bike commute. Also helps with our vision of living off the grid to be able to commute, not have to drive our vehicles, and that's been working really well. One nice thing a lot of people don't take advantage of, a lot of businesses have showers and locker rooms available for their employees. And so for us, as you'll see, our shower's not quite finished here, but we've not really had an issue because both of us have showers and locker rooms at work that we are able to utilize whenever. And it's a really good resource for people, especially people living off the grid. If that becomes an issue, there are creative ways of taking care of that.
So where Kay's located in Golden, about 20-minute bike ride that way, I'm working downtown Denver, about 15-minute bike ride that way for Invenergy, the biggest privately owned renewable energy developer in the country, just making utility scale solar and wind farms. So, you know, I'll just jump on my bike in the morning, it's downhill all the way there. It's about 15 minutes to work and like 17 coming back. So it's not even an issue. And I'm just passing cars all the way. So it's just a great lifestyle, and one of the main reasons we picked this location, because we spent about a year and a half looking for properties in Colorado, and we were in contract with a couple that didn't work out for various reasons, and we were thinking lots of space in the hills, but it's going to be an hour drive to town to get some milk and eggs. And we eventually decided on, for those of you that are trying to build a tiny home, and we found that the hardest thing to do in building a tiny home is finding a place to park it. And for us, we moved here, we sent about 600 emails to people of like, hey, you're renting a room, but do you have space in your backyard? We could pay for your utilities. Or like, we think a reasonable rate for tiny home renting space is about $300 to $600 a month, because you could use the utilities, but you don't really have much else, like a roof over your head, like a standard room. So we found that some of the best properties for tiny homes is ranches, like horse ranch, cattle ranch, because they have a bunch of space. They already have like 15 horse trailers in the backyard, and you parking your tiny little rig there isn't really going to inconvenience them at all. So we found a nice lady up in the hills in Coal Creek who let us stay on her 12-acre horse ranch.
We were there for about month and a half. Worked out really well. She was great. Unfortunately, we had some issues with neighbors, and they ended up contacting the county, and theoretically living in a tiny home on someone's property is not legal currently in Jefferson County in Colorado.
But it's not illegal, because it's kind of in this limbo state where there's a complaint that it was illegal camping, which, yeah, I don't know. But
it's a very hazy line, and there's been some really good work trying to push for legalization of tiny homes in Colorado, and it's happening. But as of now, if the county won't necessarily come looking for you, but if people complain, they will say that you have to leave. So that's what happened to us in our property in Coal Creek. And so we transitioned to another temporary location in downtown Denver.
Just a backyard.
Yeah, backyard, nice, and another woman renting out her backyard, but kind of near some other trailer parks, and no one really complained. So we were there for about a month and a half, but was not really exactly where we wanted to be. And so
our main goal was looking for like 5-10 acres that we just go park in our space, and we can put our tiny home there. Turns out,
easy enough.
Yeah, right?
That's what we thought.
Yeah, you just get your property and you park your tiny home, which it turns out is not really possible at all. While it appears that most tiny homes have wheels on them and they're mobile, so you could find land and park it, it's not a permanent structure. And one of the things you need a poor foundation, and you need to be hooked up to electricity, water, and sewage. That's just a requirement to be living on a property. And while we have all of those things, we're in a trailer, and we'd get a complaint within a couple months. They'd say that we needed to, it's a temporary structure on a permanent living situation, and that we needed to fix it or leave, and then we'd eventually get fined like $10,000 for living on our own property. So that wasn't going to work, and we eventually, long story short, found that the best option was buying land with a house on it, enough space that we could park our tiny home, and the house is just in existence to check off all the boxes so that the government can get their taxes, everyone's happy, we have a real address for our driver's license, and like, you know, real people things, and then we can park in the corner. And so that's what it turned out in this house that we could show you around. It's in Lakewood, Colorado, and it's a half acre, kind of in the suburban area. And it has half acre, so a quarter acre is just open, little fenced in pasture area, and then the other half is house with classic backyard. So we're going to live in the pasture, and we'll hopefully rent out the house and that whole quarter acre to pay the mortgage, and
yeah, I mean,
everyone's happy.
We do recognize also that we're in a very fortunate position to be able to have this as an option. Not everyone who's living the tiny life has the type of finances to be able to put the down payment on a house. And that is an issue and something that definitely needs to be addressed in terms of legalizing tiny homes, because not everyone can afford to buy a house in order to park their tiny home in the backyard. It was
Unless the mortgage, the rent pays for the mortgage.
But even so, I mean, to be able to put down a down payment on a house, it's difficult, and especially in Colorado. So we're lucky to be able to have this opportunity in this situation. It's been working out great for us, but we are hoping to be able to work to promote legalization so that not everyone has to do this down the road, because this is obviously not the ideal situation. If you're trying to live tiny, you shouldn't have to buy a home, but here we are.
But in summary, I got into tiny home idea because more of a cheap person. I like saving the planet and being green and all that stuff, but like if I could live $200-300 a month type of thing, I could have a higher quality life. And that was the original motivation behind this, that, you know, you don't need to live in a 10,000 square foot mansion. Like everything we have is right here. And that was my plan, to save money, and turns out we had to buy a house to get that to work out. So. All right, well, thank you guys so much for joining us in the tour of our little tiny home, Bessie.
Yep.
Yeah, if you guys have any questions or want to see all this stuff and our adventure along the way of trying to make it into what it is today, we do have an online video blog that's called operationoffthegrid.wordpress.com, and that just has probably hundreds of hours of us, you know, filming each other, explaining what we're doing it, how we're doing it in detail, showing the cluster of the process of us trying to be professional full-time construction people and building Bessie. So that also has our contact information. So if you guys have any specific questions, feel free to go on there and shoot us with any kind of questions you have about how we did it, why we did it, and how it's working out for us. Otherwise, you can check out the links in the bottom of this video for Underfoot Floors, Goal Zero, Sunmar Toilets,
And Garden Tower Project.
and the Flower Tower.
Yeah, and I guess just in general, as you maybe could tell, we're not professionals, and besides, you know, doing operation off the grid, showing that this is feasible to live off the grid, one of our major objectives in this, and the reason we've been keeping the video blog and this video, trying to show that you don't need to be a professional to build a tiny home. I know, you know, a lot of people, you can throw a mattress in the back of your truck, whatever, that is a good option, but even to create something that is a full-time home like this, it's not perfect, as you know, there's lots of little defaults and defects, but it works really well, and we had zero experience going into this. Reed slightly more than I did, but really no experience at all with a build, and we have done this all, like, you know, everything from framing to insulation to flooring and windows, and, you know, the entire process we've really done all ourselves, with some help from amazing people along the way. But yeah, just trying to show this process is possible. You don't have to be a full-time tiny home builder to make something really cool. And
yeah, I think we got fortunate in the layout of our design, because we didn't know what we were doing, and like, maybe we want a garage, maybe we want a bathroom, maybe we want a shower, and it worked out quite well. And we were just talking yesterday of how good of a system it is. You know, it's not perfect, but we were saying how it's not a decrease in quality of life. You know, in a big house, I could maybe walk down the hallway and go sit on a big couch to watch some Netflix, but here you can still do that. You just don't walk down a hallway. And, you know, there's a lot of other, it doesn't really, I don't feel like I've changed my lifestyle at all. It's just, you know, you go to work, you come home, you go to your home, you live in your home, you sleep, you go back to work. It's doesn't feel any different.
And I'd say one of our biggest pieces of advice would be take the time to think about what you want and plan before you do it. It was slightly frustrating for us. You know, we felt like we were spending months and months of just planning and like, when are we gonna do something?
We're just between the videos, like, we just talk. We just spend like all
that's all we
weekend
do is
talking and planning, and we never do anything. But it turns out that that was worth it.
Yeah, I think it was really worth it, and a lot of the feedback we've gotten on this is like how functional it is, and how and we've felt the same ourselves, that it really works for us and for our lives. And I don't think we would have come to that point if we hadn't really taken the time to think about where things were going to be and really rationally design every aspect of this house. And it can make for a long process and a slightly frustrating process, but that is something that I think is just so key. If you really take the time to plan, figure out what you want, put it all together, it's going to be something pretty awesome.
And if you don't know what you want, talk to people.
Yeah.
You know, get on those blogs and the tiny homes and go to the festivals and ask people what they did and what they'd recommend and what they learned from the process, because we learned a bunch. And there's, you know, a lot of different things we could have changed or done it differently, and we learned along the way. And it'd be great to talk to those people that experience that, and you can kind of get ahead on what they found is most valuable.